Hi everyone, Christina here with Uniquely Mine. In this video, I am going to show you my take on these fingernail polished flowers that you can use to make almost anything, even a pair of earrings just like this. Okay, for this project, we were going to need the following items. You're going to need a pair of cutters, needle nose pliers. A pair of crook nose pliers always comes in handy for me. You will need either a mandrel or some other type of surface in order to work your flowers with. You can use a chopstick, a pencil, or even a Sharpie. Sharpies are the ones that tend to work better for larger flowers. You will also need wire. The thinner the better. Today I will be using 26 gauge. And fingernail polish. Fingernail polish, the older and more thicker it is, the better it will work. Optional items for making earrings will be either, if you have non-pierced ears, a clip-on type of earring holder, or you can use earring wires. And flat back crystals are really good for adding that special bling to your jewelry. And a good jewelry grade glue. I typically use E6000. Another item that is not necessary but is very useful is something to hold your flowers on while they dry. I made my little flower holder that you see here. I made it using just a silicone cup for making muffins, and I got a small styrofoam ball sat inside of it. Comes in handy and works perfectly. So let's get started. Alright, what we're going to do for these, I'm going to start with a small one first. So to make a small flower, I like using a chopstick. And it's very simple how you do this. You're going to roughly take about an inch, give yourself about 1.5 inches or so leeway from the end. Take that and roll it onto your dowel rod or your mandrel 5 times. So you see we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 wires showing. Now I'm going to take those and pinch them together and wrap 1 time around the tail that I created from the beginning. That 1 time will kind of help secure it as it comes off. I like to come down just slightly from the before tail because we're going to wrap that. So you see where I have that just maybe about 1/4 to 1/2 inch past the original tail. I'm going to snip that off. And then I'm going to take the longer tail and wrap it about 2 to 3 times. This is where my crook nose pliers come in handy because I like to take it and pull it tight. Going 1, 2 times is normally about what you need. And you have your wire secured. Now, another thing I like to do with my crook nose is that I like to kind of give it that leaf shape or flower petal shape. So when I'm making the smaller ones, I actually take the flat part of my crook nose and I squish it on each side. And it automatically gives it that little leaf shape to the petals, if you see. Then I will open up the flower by opening up each wire petal. And as I open up each petal, you're going to start to move them around and keep them, because they're kind of spread out right here. So you're going to move them to where they actually resemble a flower. Taking those two down and then moving the other two flat. Now the last one, the fifth one's always a little tricky to get it to look right. So a lot of times I take my flat noses and I turn it with them so I keep the shape of my leaf or my flower petal, and then I lay it over flat. But I have to use my flat nose to keep that shape. So now what you've created is a little flower. Now with the earrings, which is what we're going to do today, I like to kind of pull up the edges just a hair, and with those I like to use my needle nose pliers to kind of give it that rounded edge. This actually also helps in getting the polish to stay put on your flowers by decreasing the surface area. I've learned that the more or the less surface area you have, the more likely the polish is to adhere in one good go. And these are the type of flowers I like to do when I do the earrings. Now, after you've gotten your flower put together, so the tricky part comes in. Now, the smaller the flower is, of course, the easier it is to get the polish to actually adhere to it. Get a good amount of polish on there. You don't want just a very little, just kind of a little bubble. And then coat it really well. As you see, the smaller they are, the easier it is to coat. And the more surface area, the harder it is to coat. But you don't want to have just a little bit of polish on there. You kind of really want to have a lot of polish. It may look like you're not going to see any wire once this is dried, but you actually will, and I'll show you in just a minute what I mean. So now this is coated completely, and I know it looks like it's kind of blobbed on there, but as it dries, that polish will tighten up, and you will end up with a flower that looks just like this as it finishes tightening up. Sometimes you may need more than one coat if your polish is not as thick and it wants to come on there thinner, but normally a good coat should do well. Set that flower aside to dry and make another one for your earrings. Again, as I said, about 1.5 inches tail works really well. Go 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Squish it together. One wrap around, and then leave about 1/4 to 1/2 inch extra on the side. Slide it off and wrap on the inside tightly. 1, 2 times. Shape your leaves. Open your petals. Move your first 2 toward each other. As such. Lay your next 2 down flat and move them away from the first 2, and take your last one use your flat pliers to hold your flower petal together and turn to lay flat. Finally, shape your flower petals. I said turning up always makes a really nice area. Also looks good if you put your flat back crystals in there for your flower petal to be actually kind of closed in on them a little. Once your flower is shaped, add your polish. Just make it thick and it'll spread pretty easy. If you have trouble from the top going through, sometimes it does help to go from underneath. If your petals are not quite right, like this one right here that I'm working on, well, they actually went, but if it wouldn't go, I would come from underneath. And sometimes that helps the polish to bubble over and adhere better. And like I said, don't worry if it looks like there's way too much polish sitting in that well, because even though it looks like there's a lot of polish, it's going to look more like this. Now, if you notice there's a little thin spot right there, if you get a thin spot where it looks like it's really clear, if you roll your flower around just for a few seconds, the polish will actually kind of drag itself down with gravity downwards, and it'll fill that spot. So that way all you have to do is just wait a few seconds and then put it over to the side to dry, and you shouldn't have an opening once it's dry. Now that we've worked on how to make the flowers, we're going to go back and actually show you how to make a pair of earrings out of that first set that we made. Before we had these that we painted, and now they're ready to have a little stone added on to them. Very simple. All you do is take a little bit of your jeweler's glue, whatever type you might use, put a very little dab. You do not need a whole lot. A little goes a long ways. After you put your dab of glue in there, we're going to set our stone right on top and set them aside to dry for just a little bit. Let's do that for the next one. And again, we're going to put a little dab of glue on there and then set our stone right there on top. So now we're going to make our earrings. After we've let the glue set and dry in the stones, we need to make sure we have a tail that's roughly about an inch. And as I told y'all before, this mat right here, these are roughly about an inch apart. So if I just snip right about there, I'm going to have about an inch to work with. I'm going to take my ends and I'm going to curl them up and then move up a little bit so I can wrap my wire around my flower. Let me get a better hold on that. And I'm going to wrap those ends around 1, 2, and readjust that and take that wire right around there just a few times. We're going to make it a little decorative. As you see, these are pretty tough flowers from all the pulling and tugging I'm doing at it right now. These flowers will hold up very well, especially if you've made sure to put enough polish on it
snip off any excess that you may have left over. Just crimp those ends on in there so they don't have any poking parts to stick. Now, if your end is sticking out like this and you don't want to put a jump ring on, because you could either use a jump ring or not, but if you do not want to put a jump ring on, then take your loop and turn it around so that way it is same way facing, your hole's facing outward like your earring. Take your earring wire, make sure that you open up your loop. After you've opened up your loop, you're just going to simply put it right through that hole and then close those earring wires right back up. And now your earring is done. I'll show you one more time on the next one. Again, like I said, about roughly an inch worth of space. We're going to pull this up and I'm going to wrap that wire around my needle nose pliers, and then I'm going to wrap the wire around itself so that makes it nice and secure. Snip off any extras that I have on the ends and then tuck them in with my pliers. Again, I'm going to place my loops facing outward and adjust that slightly. Take my earring wire, which I've already opened up that one's end, slide it right through there. And close it up. Now, I have a perfect set of earrings ready for whatever I need.
If you like this video and you would like to see more just like it, please make sure that you subscribe to my YouTube channel at Uniquely Mine. And thank you for watching. Bye.